Shanti. So we'll talk for half an hour on the subtle regions, and specifically the 3 levels of the subtle regions. And I'd first like to get a sort of like a hands up. Who actually experiments with yoga with the subtle regions? Anyone? Do you experiment with all the levels in the subtle regions? Except Shankapuri. So the yoga for the subtle regions is quite interesting because it's experimental yoga. There's no really clear instructions about how to get to the subtle regions in terms of step by step, but there has been lots of instructions about attaining the avyak stage that Baba has mentioned in Avyakta Murlis over the last more than 30 years, you know. I mean, even in the most recent Avyakta Murli from a few weeks back, you know, in 1983, these original Murlis, Baba was talking about meeting Baba in the subtle world, where you don't have a crowd, you can meet Baba straight away, you don't have to wait for a meeting, you don't have to line up for a meeting. So even back in 1983, Baba was encouraging us to go to the subtle regions, to make the effort to have that yoga and go up above, you know, to the subtle regions. And because the subtle regions, you know, what is made by Baba on the way down when the confluence age started, and the subtle regions is for us, it's our playground, it's Brahman's playground. And of course there are 3 levels to the subtle regions: the Brahma Puri, the Vishnu Puri, and Shankar Puri. Now everyone hears about Brahma Puri because that's where Brahma Baba resides, even though he's free to travel all over the world and all the 3 worlds. Oh, actually, I don't know if he's free to travel to Paramdam or not. I doubt very much. But what Baba is encouraging us to experiment with, and this is why I got interested back in the 1980s, was because in the Avyakta Murli back in the 80s, Baba talked about experimentation a lot. He talked about experimenting with yoga, experimenting with the power of thought, experimenting with seed stage yoga, which Baba has also provided many Murlis on. But also he's encouraged us to keep meeting him in the Avyakta region. And of course with the current time that's happening in the drama with everyone's health and things like that, then that more than ever is now necessary to go up above and meet Baba. And you know, I don't know how many very old yogis are here. How many have been here since the 80s? Who was around in the 1980s? Anyone? In 1988, remember Baba cancelled the season. He cancelled the whole season in 1988 because Daddy Gulzar got diagnosed with cancer and she started chemotherapy. So the whole season was cancelled, but Brahman still came. Of course there was no Gyan Sarovar and no Shantivan. So what actually happened, you know, was that because Baba didn't come, everyone had to make the effort to go up above to meet Baba, to actually have more yoga, you know, because in those days Baba was coming twice a week, sort of like, you know, and for hours and hours and hours he would come to the late night, sometimes early morning he would be there. So the whole night Baba would be there. So many Brahmins at that time were relying, of course, on the physical meeting of Baba coming into the medium and actually being in front of him, you know. But then all of a sudden, one year, that was not happening, you know. The whole season was cancelled. So everyone had to make the effort to go up above, rather than relying on Baba coming down to our level, you know, here in the physical world. So what actually happened is that because everyone had to make the extra effort to go up above, Baba gave extra experiences, you know. He gave extra help to everyone. And I know personally from asking many that year about their experiences, because Baba was not there in front of them, they all had fantastic yoga experiences, you know. Because, you know, Baba's often said, you know, if we take one step towards him, he'll take 2 or 3 steps towards us. And so if we make that effort to go up above and meet him in the subtle regions, you know, he will also make the effort to give you a very, you know, very nice experience, a very fantastic experience. And so this was my effort from the 80s after that year, because I observed that, you know, even though we made the effort to go up above, the experience was just absolutely, everyone had such a good time in Madhuban, you know, the yoga was fantastic. So this is Baba's power, and this is Baba's giving the return of the effort of experimentation and going up above in yoga. And so to actually get to the subtle regions is actually very easy, because it's only actually a thought away. I mean, when you think about it, what is remembrance? Remembrance is just a thought. You're remembering someone. We remember things all the time. We remember where we live. We remember what we've done in our house or flat. You know, we remember our house. We remember other people sometimes. We're not supposed to. Baba says you're supposed to remember him. So, but it is only a thought away, and it's the same with attaining the avyakt sort of connection, if you like, having your experience in the subtle regions, because we have our perfect form there waiting for us. And Baba has mentioned this many times in avyakt murlis as well, especially from the 80s and 90s, about your avyakt form waiting for you to become equal to that level. And it was the same with the Sakar murlis when Brahma Baba was achieving his avyakt state, you know, because, you know, right at the beginning, you know, when Daddy Gulzar went into trance as a small child, he said, you know, there's another Brahma up there, you know, but he looks slightly different, you know. So all of your avyakt selves are actually waiting there, you know, and not many Brahmins, I don't know, I mean, now the practice of actually getting in touch with your perfect avyakt self, which is waiting there, not that there's another soul, but it's that form that Baba has provided, which has all the perfect sanskaras that are deeply embedded in the soul, you know, from the beginning of the cycle, those perfect sanskaras. So making the effort to go up above, to have that connection, to even visualize what it's like, I mean, Baba will give you a very good experience. And it's not that hard. I mean, anyone can actually visualize. You don't have to be, I mean, I find it very easy. I'm a graphical person. I do animation, so I find it very easy to visualize things. But actually anyone can visualize, because if you were to think of the place where you live and visualize what your kitchen looks like or your lounge looks like, you could easily conjure in your mind all the things that are there, can't you? I mean, it's very, very easy, because you've been there, you know it. You know where everything is in the cupboards, the outlay of the benches, you know what everything is like in the place where you live. So it's easy for you to picture it in your mind. So the subtle regions is also like that. I mean, and there are 3 levels to the subtle regions, obviously, the Brahma, Vishnu, Shankar, Puri. And the Vishnu Puri is provided there to give visions and to give experiences of your deity form. Evoke those sanskaras, because all your deity sanskaras, all your perfect sanskaras are there. They're there. They're just buried very deeply, that's all. And you have to renew them. you have to actually bring them forward, you know, and practice sort of like attaining or what it's like to actually experience that stage in the golden age, you know, because we're actually almost on the way there. I mean, it's getting late in the confluence age, huh? It's sort of been 80 years, and now the meetings are changing again. You know, in 1988 the meetings changed. After 1988 the meetings changed to only country by country instead of individual. You know, so that was a big step, and then after that it became even changed again. So this is another change for us, and now we have to make the effort for the yoga, and we have to make the effort to go up above. So I mean, each specific level in the subtle regions has its own flavor, has its own fragrance, and of course the Vishnu Puri is for the deity sort of sanskaras if you want to experience, and the Shankar Puri is a level down from Paramdam. I don't know if has anyone had a trance experience or a vision of the subtle regions? Anyone? You have? You actually saw which one, the Vishnu Puri or Brahma Puri or the white region? Oh, the point. Okay, so you went to Paramdam. Okay, so you saw Paramdam. Okay. So when I came into Gyan, for the first 2 to 3 years, I had quite a few visions. I am not sure why. I have no clue as to why Baba gave me those things, but it was many of them are very, very interesting, including one Amrit Vela. I sat down in Baba's room. I was in a brother's house. I sat down in Baba's room, and as soon as I sat down, I found myself surrounded by light, just white, and all the foreigners were standing there. I mean, everyone's light body was standing there, and Baba was standing there as well. And of course the first question came into my mind, Baba, what am I doing here? Because I knew where I was, you know. And so when you actually have a chance, Baba gave me a chance to actually see what it is, you know, but it isn't actually anything substantial. There's no, you can't even see a ground there, you know. It's just white light. It's like has anyone ever been here during monsoon? Has anyone ever been here during monsoon? When there's absolute thick fog here, you can stand in Baba's room and not see the reception. You know, that's how thick. Everyone says it's like the Avyak regions, you know, because the light bounces around doing animations, the light bounces around the fog and sort of makes it a little bit glowy, you know, so you've got the sunlight filtering through. So with the Avyak regions, of course, the Avyak world is all made of light, you know, because Baba made it on the way down. So what you have to do when you want to have yoga with the subtle regions is not only picture Avyak Baba there, because we all know what a Brahma Baba looks like, and Shiv Baba riding in the forehead of Brahma Baba. So we have to sort of like picture, we have to use a little bit of imagination when we do it, you know, when we form these images in our mind, because it is only a single thought away, you know. But then when you start to experience an Avyak stage or an experience of the subtle regions, it does help to actually picture what it is like, because it is actually like what Brahma Baba said. I don't know if everyone's read the transcript. You know, when Brahma Baba became Avyak, 3 days later Avyak Baba came, you know, in Dadikul Zar. And so of course the question on everyone's mind is, what was it like? What was it like to leave the body and go to the Avyak region? And Brahma Baba said it was like changing your clothes and stepping into another room, you know. So his Avyak stage was so sort of up there, was that it was very easy to shed the body and just step. It's like stepping into another room, just stepping into, you know, the Avyak world, stepping into the subtle world, especially Brahma Puri. So when you actually picture it, you can picture it like a room, like you're stepping into a room, but a room has no walls, but it is another, well, Baba calls it 3 worlds, a realm. A realm is an old word, which is an interesting word, I find, a realm that full of light, but there's no horizon, you know, but you can still see Avyak Bapdada's form there, you know, the whole form, and everything is made of light, you know. And while even I'm talking about it now, in my mind I've got the clear image of what it is, and I've got the clear image of Avyak Bapdada sort of there, you know. So it is only a thought away, and you can talk and get your mind focused on something else sort of at the same time. And of course it's the same with Vishnu Puri, okay, the next level up. And I remember excuse me, one vision I had, it was very interesting. I was in a Brahma Puri, and the whole Brahmin family was there, and all the seniors were up the front, and Mama, Baba and the seniors were talking about how wonderful the Brahmin family was, you know, that each child is unique, and how unique everyone was, you know, their own specialities, and we have to see those. And then all of a sudden, and this was in the experience, all of a sudden everyone, we all caught like a giant lift, and we all went up a level, and we were standing on this hill, and this was in Vishnu Puri, standing on this hill overlooking this palace, you know, so it was the golden age. And what struck me was this palace was huge. I mean, it went on for a long time. It was a massive sort of area, you know, and that's just one palace. And so that experience got me thinking about the different levels, and they are like levels of a building, except of course it's all made of light, you know. So we can go to those levels, you know, we have the power. Baba's given us the key in yoga to actually experience those levels. And of course the next level after Vishnu Puri, of course, is Shankar Puri. Now Shankar Puri has a unique sort of role from what I've sort of experienced, and one can I say it's a vision? One vision was I was standing in Shankar Puri, but and it's interesting, and this got me thinking about the Three Worlds poster. This was in the late 80s, and standing in Shankar Puri, you could see the curve of the subtle regions, or you could see the curve of the Avyakt world, and just above it you could see Paramdam. And if I had a physical arm, if I were to put my arm up like this, it would go into Paramdam, if you know what I mean. It was that distinct. Everything was very distinct. And what got me thinking about that was the curvature, you know, because in the Three Worlds, the very old poster of the Three Worlds, you see, you know, the egg shape, you know, and it actually is like that. You know, it's very accurate, that picture, even though it's old. And Paramdam is an interesting yoga experience because it's where you can go to experience silence without going into the point-like state. So if you have trouble and reaching a point-like state, and Baba has, you know, told us to practice the point-like state. Of course, soul consciousness is practicing a point-like state for ourselves, but also when we go home to soul world and practice the point-like state, then it's also picturing Shiv Baba there in his point-like state, because he is only a point, he's not in any other state, you know. So when we do that, when we go into that point-like state, and this is where Baba has mentioned in many, many Avyakt Murlis, excuse me, that when you practice the point-like state, the Avyakt state becomes much easier. And the more you practice the point-like state, the more you'll be able to, because you're going up to the highest level, that is Paramdam, the easier it is just to come down a level, you know, and experience what those Avyakt levels are like. So the more we remember the home and practice the point-like state, then the more we can actually experience the Avyakt state. And I remember Brahma Baba, one of these Avyakt Murlis, Brahma Baba and Shiv Baba were having a conversation, like having a chit-chat. And Baba was talking about the point-like state. Brahma Baba was talking about the practice of the point-like state and how easy it is to achieve the avyakt sort of the avyakt level of our stage through the point-like state. So this is a very, very good practice for everyone. And now, because the times are getting a bit tense in the world, you know, the drama and the confluence age is also changing. So it's these practices we need to practice more and more. And during the morning, early morning, I mean, I've had some very good experiences. You do service through the mind. Does everyone practice service through the mind regularly? Because it is a very, very good way to do service, you know. Baba needs our yoga power and our purity, you know. To help the world, we need the yoga power. Sorry. And this is something that I also practice sometimes at Amrit Vela, which is very, very interesting, because Amrit Vela is a very quiet time, and there's a much more power there than during the day when the surrounding atmosphere is noisy. That you can, you know, reach out with your mind. I don't know if everyone does this, you know, when you serve the world with your mind, do you reach out? If you go into the point-like state, and it's a I don't know the English word, sorry, I'm not very good in English, even though I speak English. When you go into a point-like state, the smaller you go into the point-like state, then the more distance that you can send your thoughts out into the world. I'm not sure if that's clear or not, but they seem to go together. And I remember reading one passage in the Shiv Purana. I didn't read the whole Shiv Purana. I just picked up a volume in an old second-hand bookshop and read a couple of pages, and there was one page there about Shiva is the infinitesimal small, but the infinite in the awareness of, you know, the universe and what is going on in the drama. And if you go into the point-like state and remember Baba, and if you keep Baba in front of you and really drill your concentration into Baba, I mean really drill your concentration into Baba, really concentrate, you can start to see the expanse. And I've experienced this only a couple of times, you know, you can start to see the expanse inside Baba's mind, how huge Baba's mind is, and the intellect, and what Baba's thoughts and awareness encompass, you know, and they encompass such a huge, basically the three worlds. I mean, because he's free to travel the three worlds, but he's also knows exactly where to be and what to do at exactly every point in the drama, you know, because he does things absolutely accurately. He cannot make a mistake, you know. Shiv Baba is God, so he cannot make a mistake. So if you concentrate into that point-like awareness, you can get a fleeting glimpse. And it is very interesting because we're not perfect. We cannot hold that stage, or I can't anyway. Maybe someone can, you know, maybe one of the seniors have done it, you know. And I remember in Avyakt Murli's Baba saying that if you hold the point-like state for some time, it's the quickest and most efficient way to burn karma and the old sanskaras, you know, is that point-like state. And of course, once you do this, then it becomes very, very easy to go to the subtle world. Very, very easy. Because if you can go to Paramdam and hold the point-like state, if you can hold that concentration in yoga, then it's very, very easy to jump down a level. And they are levels. I mean, right now, you know, if I'm sort of picturing the three worlds in my mind, they are levels, and I can almost see, because you have a third eye, and because the subtle world is a spiritual world, and you have a spiritual third eye, you will be able to almost see it superimposed in your mind. I mean, it's a very funny way to describe it, because it's very hard to describe into words the effect it has when you have that sort of yoga, you know, that concentration, that you can actually see the subtle world while still seeing this world. It's sort of like, not overlaid, which is actually a graphical term, an animation term also, but it's, you can still actually see it with your third eye and there. And I don't know if any of you practice regularly going into different stages. I mean, Baba has talked about the 5 forms, obviously, and that we have to practice these 5 forms, and of course the Avyak stage is one of those forms, the angelic stage. But also, if you stand, like, for example, this is just an example, when I live in Australia, I live at the retreat centre in Melbourne called Baxter, and there's actually 10-minute drive away, there's a beach. Melbourne is on a huge bay, so there's no waves or anything, it's just like a giant lake, but it is the ocean. And one evening, when there's the sunset, I was standing on the beach, and I thought, and there was hardly anyone there, and it was quite silent. And I was sort of like having yoga, and I was thinking, if this is the end of the cycle, and nature can be this beautiful, what would it be like to stand on a planet that's brand new, you know, where the matter is brand new, where the nature is brand new. And when you start having these thoughts, I don't know, for myself, what actually happened, Baba gives you an experience straight away. And while I was standing there, I had this, again, a superimposed image of standing on the beach in the Golden Age. But it's hard to describe in words, the energy coming from the matter, the colour, the vibrancy, you know, was there. And so this is Baba giving an experience from the subtle regions, you know, because I can't, of course we have memories of going to the Golden Age, the sanskaras are there, the memories are very deep, but I can't, you know, we can't consciously recall anything. But Baba can give you an experience, give us an experience if we practice experimenting, like doing these things, you know, standing somewhere and experiment with the yoga. What's it like to be like in this place? What's it like to be in the Golden Age? Because Baba's waiting to give us an experience, you know. So doing this sort of experimentation with the Avyak stage, with the subtle regions, with the 3 levels there, with Paramdam, you know, brings a lot of interesting experiences and benefits, you know. And the more you practice it, of course, the easier it becomes, you know. So, I mean, doing these sorts of things is very highly beneficial, especially since it's becoming very late in the drama, and things will get only more intense, you know, in the outside world. If they're not already, they will become more, you know. Even the Boxing Day tsunami in 2004, Baba called it a rehearsal, you know, so, and that's, you know, how many tens of thousands of people died in that, you know. So what's still to come, we will need to have that stage, you know, so the yoga stage and the constant sort of stage. So for me, practicing the point-like state, making the journey to the subtle world easy by practicing that state, constantly remember the home, excuse me, and the point-like state, and of course remember Shiv Baba, you know, churn about Shiv Baba, churn about him, you know, his role, his address. Finish sharp, 6 p.m. We've got 1 minute. So to wind up, so anyway, experimentation with the subtle regions is very good, and Baba will give you many experiences, you know. So when sitting in yoga, for the next half hour, we can sort of like experiment with just, you know, you can go to Paramdam, but you can go to that level and picture the three worlds like levels. They are levels. This is the third floor, that's the second floor, Paramdam is the first floor, or the ground floor, you know, because that's the highest. So picture that, picture yourself there, and have some good experiments. Yeah, sure. Yep, in the Brahma Puri. Our perfect form. Sorry, what was the question? I didn't. The second half. No, Baba has actually created your perfect form. You know, when we become a Brahmin, when we take birth with Baba, you know. Okay, the question was that that our avyakt form in the subtle regions, is it our memory that's providing that, or is Baba actually providing that? You know, and from what I've experienced, it's Baba providing that. You know, I don't know how to create a subtle being of light. I don't have the power. Only God has that power. So when I went to the subtle regions that Amrit Vela, sorry Trish, when I went to the subtle regions that one Amrit Vela, I saw all the foreigners there, and I knew they were all the foreigners, and they were all light bodies, you know. So I've never met a lot of foreigners, so I don't know what they look like, but everyone had form, you know. So everyone's face would be the same face they have now, but of course they're perfect, so face slightly different to what now, less stressful probably. But but that was not me. Baba showed me that. So he created all of those in order, including the one I was in, seeing everything. So, and then we went through this whole sort of story after that, and it had like a moral to the tale at the end of this experience, which is quite interesting, but we haven't got time. So, but it's definitely Baba who creates it, you know.